Welcome to Barbara's Bulletin, the podcast where we bring you the latest news from around the world, without bias or agenda. I'm your host, Barbara, and I'm glad you're joining us today. We start with a developing story from Eastern Europe, where tensions between Russia and Ukraine continue to escalate. According to reports, Russia has launched a series of drone attacks on Ukrainian cities, resulting in casualties and damage to infrastructure. The Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, has condemned the attacks, saying that Russia is making a mockery of peacekeeping efforts and dragging out the war. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has called for a transitional administration in Ukraine, under the auspices of the United Nations. This proposal has been met with skepticism by Ukrainian officials, who see it as an attempt to undermine their country's sovereignty. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has been ongoing for months, with both sides accusing each other of violating ceasefire agreements and targeting civilian areas. The international community has been trying to broker a peace deal, but so far, no lasting agreement has been reached. In related news, Russia claims to have captured 2 villages in eastern and southern Ukraine as part of its ongoing military campaign. Ukrainian officials have not confirmed these reports, and the situation on the ground remains fluid. It's worth noting that both sides have suffered significant losses in this conflict, with thousands of civilians and soldiers killed or injured. The humanitarian toll is mounting, and there are concerns about the long-term impact on the region. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you updates as more information becomes available. For now, it's clear that the situation between Russia and Ukraine remains volatile and unpredictable. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. We're glad you're still with us as we dive into the latest news from around the world. Today, we're taking a closer look at a developing story that has significant implications for online security and government transparency. It appears that sensitive personal information belonging to several senior Trump administration security officials is easily discoverable online. According to reports from German news outlet Der Spiegel, mobile phone numbers, email addresses, and even passwords for top officials, such as National Security Advisor Waltz, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, can be found on the Internet. This raises serious concerns about the vulnerability of high-level government officials to cyber threats and hacking attempts. While it's true that millions of people have been affected by online data breaches and inadequate privacy settings, government security officials are at a higher risk due to their sensitive positions and access to classified information. The fact that this personal information was discovered using publicly available people search engines and data from previous breaches highlights the need for greater vigilance and proactive measures to protect sensitive information. It's worth noting that officials have stated that many of these accounts and details are no longer in use or have been updated, but the fact remains that they were accessible online in the first place. In related news, the recent Signalgate controversy has also raised questions about the security protocols in place for government officials' personal communications. The incident involved the exposure of a private Signal chat between high-ranking officials, which was reportedly discovered through a publicly available data breach. As we continue to navigate the complexities of online security and government transparency, it's essential to strike a balance between protecting sensitive information and ensuring accountability. We'll be keeping a close eye on this story as it develops, and exploring the implications for online security and governance in future episodes. In other news, a massive earthquake has struck Myanmar, causing widespread damage and loss of life. The country's internet restrictions have made it challenging to assess the full extent of the damage, highlighting the importance of reliable and open access to the internet in times of crisis. Additionally, a Canadian man accused of being involved in the snowflake hacking spree has agreed to be extradited to the United States to face charges. This case serves as a reminder of the global nature of cybercrime and the need for international cooperation to bring perpetrators to justice. Finally, London is set to become the first city in the UK to install permanent facial recognition cameras, sparking concerns about privacy and surveillance. We'll be monitoring this story closely and exploring the implications for civil liberties and law enforcement in future episodes. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. As we conclude our program today, I want to bring your attention to a pressing issue that affects not just one nation, but the global community. The recent announcement by the U.S. Agency for International Development to cut nearly all remaining jobs and essentially shut down its operations has sent shockwaves across the humanitarian sector. This decision has far-reaching implications, particularly for organizations like the Irish charity Goal, which is now forced to cut around 30% of its staff, operating in 14 countries. The reason behind this drastic measure is directly linked to the abrupt funding cuts from major donors, including the U.S., Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Britain. As Siobhan Walsh, CEO of Goal, so eloquently put it, the unprecedented scale of these cuts is placing an indescribable toll on the entire humanitarian system, and millions of lives are on the brink. It's heartbreaking to hear that children under 5 participating in one of Goal's Ethiopian feeding programs for malnutrition are already dying due to interruptions and suspensions brought about by these aid cuts. The scale of global job cuts across the sector is not yet fully visible, but it's clear that this will have a devastating impact on vulnerable communities worldwide. Stabilization centers have exhausted their allocated supplies of therapeutic milk, putting thousands of children at significant risk. Now, I know some might argue that reform was needed within USAID, and that's a valid point. However, the question remains, what would a world without U.S. foreign aid look like? Would it lead to more instability, or would other nations step up to fill the void? As we ponder these questions, let's not forget the human side of this story. The staff at Goal and other humanitarian organizations are not just statistics, they're dedicated individuals who have devoted their lives to helping those in need. In conclusion, as we navigate this complex and ever-changing world, it's essential that we prioritize empathy and understanding. Let's continue to support organizations like Goal, which are working tirelessly to make a difference in the lives of millions. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay engaged. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay engaged.